This video compares pixel node strips and what you need to be aware of when making a purchase. It also explains some of the manufacturing processes and other things that may not be obvious on initial purchase. All right, we're comparing three products here. The bottom product here is Holiday Core Extreme Strip. The second product is a product produced in the United States. And the third product is a product produced in China. Now the spacings here are 2-inch, 2-inch, and 1-inch. Now on just first visual look, you can see that the Holiday Core product and the Chinese product do include the splice holes. This is important. It allows you to fix strips if you need to extend them in the future, have problems with them, want to reuse them on a new project as maybe your tree grows. These make extending your strips extremely simple. It also makes it easier to use with some of the products like MISR clips and Holiday Core Quick Tree toppers and all kinds of different things. It just adds value. There's no loss in adding these holes. They don't change the structural integrity of the product or anything. So that's just visually. Now, aesthetically here, what you're going to see is that there's some differences in the plastics. So the bottom plastic here, Holiday Core, is a flat black plastic. Now, as is the competitor US product. Both of these products are superior in that respect because this reflective or glossy look on this Chinese strip will reflect light. In any theater production, everyone knows everything you don't want to stand out should be black and flat. And that is what we have here. We have products that don't work to reflect light any more than necessary. All right, so let's do some measurements here. So we have the widths, 1.19 for the Chinese strip. The US competitor, we have 1.125, which has kind of been the standard originally, and 1.125. So Chinese just a little bit wider. Now, let's look at the thicknesses. Now, the Chinese strip is one continuous width. So it was not extruded from a die. What happened was is they took sheets and they slit them. So they took a sheet, put it on a roll, put a knife, and cut it. More than likely what that means is that you'll actually see some differences as the slitting process changes, as it's running. That's fairly typical. So the width, though, of the material, because it's cut from one sheet, is all the way through 0.0616263, somewhere around that. All right. The competitor product is different, just like the Holiday Core, in that its width or its thickness on the inside is different from the outside. And there's a good reason for that. And so the thickness on the inside, 0.057 or so. And then on the outside, we have, let's measure it across this way, we have about 0.073 or so. And then the Holiday Core product also on the center here, we have about 0.053 or so. And then we have on the outside 0.075. Now, why does it matter that they're actually smaller in the center? It's because the pixels have a diameter, and that diameter, we're going to just measure it here, is set at the neck. And this is between where the two grips occur. So these are originally designed to be put into sheet metal, and they pop in and they grab the top and the bottom of the material. And so they only are set a certain thickness. And so, let's flip this back on here, zero that out. So we're going to see here that the diameter here is 0.4, this varies, 0.44, so around there. And then the thickness is about 0.083, it varies. You can see 0.7. It varies a little bit by pixel. Now, so you want that pixel to grab in between these two grippers, but not anymore. So you still want it to be thick enough to hold the pixel into place, grab it appropriately, and still be strong enough to be stretched out and make a nice tight string. All right, so why does that matter? Because that hole in the center here, this width or the thickness of this, is better suited to the US made products that have the slightly smaller insides, and then the larger outside is to carry more load. Now, let's talk about the next thing, because you're going to be doing a lot of this if you're building a pixel MegaTree, putting the actual pixels into the strips. So this matters about the hole size. Now, the generally accepted correct size for holes for most pixels is 0.45 inches. Now, they could be other sizes, but that is generally across the industry standard the norm. So we're going to measure some hole sizes here. So this is the US competitor product, and we can see we're sitting at around 0.451. So it's about 0.45. I would say it's designed for 0.55. And then the next one here we have is ours, 0.45, 451. So yeah, 0.45 is what we designed it for. And then we have this Chinese strip, and it's 0.435. So it's 0.02 inches smaller in size than the others. Well, that makes a big difference. So let's just go ahead and try putting a pixel in these. So I'm just going to pick a hole here. I'm just going to attempt to put it in, and it is exceedingly hard. In fact, I need to push it on this table. You will be Hercules after you've done these. Even now, I can't even hardly get it in there. This strip would be insane to install pixels in. And so what you can see here is that it's actually bowed up. I don't know if you can see that. So that bowing is because there's stresses in the material. It's bowing it out, pushing the plastic, because this pixel is so tight in here, it literally is distorting the material. This ultimately distorts your spacing, and of course you actually have to put these pixels in, which makes it nearly impossible in this particular strip. Now, on these other strips, made in the United States, the pixels go in with much greater ease. So I'm going to push this in. We can see that it's in there. It lands in there. There's a little bit of tension, but not too much. And here's the Holiday Coral strip. And same thing. Just a little bit of play, but not too much. So you want it to be in there, but not so much that it's not able to easily be pushed in there. Okay, so hole size. Clearly, the Chinese strip, very bad. Now, there's some other problems to note about the Chinese strip. The Chinese strip and this US competitor strip are both what are called rotary punched. It's a big wheel with a bunch of dies that go around and punch them. This is very fast, and it allows them to produce lots of strip cheaply. The problem is, it's just not that accurate. And in this particular case, you can see a really bad example of this. This is the Chinese strip, and you can see where the die actually has resulted in, and let me zoom in here, it has actually resulted in deformation of the hole. I don't know if you can see that there's actually material sticking out here 1/8 of an inch out of the hole. And you can see that this keeps occurring here, 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 and it gets a little less here, back to it. So it's a defect within the die and the punch. Now, the competitor product also has a slight defect in that respect too. And this is just a byproduct of the process. You can see that there's material sitting on the surface of this. So in other words, there's actually some material that's not completely punched out. It's left over, and you can see it right here. It's sticking up. This makes it harder for you to set your pixels, or not allowing them to set properly. The Holiday Coral product, which has a very complex die system that doesn't work in a rotary fashion and punches down directly, has perfect holes. And so there are not leftover pieces in these strips. They have completely free of any kind of burrs, not only on the 1/8 inch splice holes, but on the pixels themselves. This eases your installation. Now, some other notes on the method here. Now, these are extruded here. These two types are extruded. This one from the US and this one ours. This one is sheet formed. It's cut via from a sheet, and that's why, again, it's also one continuous run. So this one's actually going to always, in almost all cases, going to be the same uniform thickness and have uniform aesthetics. Now, it might have slight differences in the width as you go along. Now, on these strips, they're extruded. They have plastic in a die, and the die shoots it out. It's run through a bath and cooled off, and then solidified into strip. Now, how this process works and how good the die is varies. In this particular case, you can see visual differences between the products. This die has some defects. And for example, here we can see that there's a line running through the center that shouldn't be there. And unfortunately, it intersects with the pixel, creating a high spot. It also means that you've got kind of a good side and a bad side. It would be better if you just had two good sides. We also see a leathery consistency. And that leathery consistency is just because of the extrusion process. And you can see it up here. It doesn't completely look uniform, as where this looks extremely uniform. There's no changes in the texture or the appearance in that. Okay, now let's get to one of the most important, oh, actually here, we've got one more thing. Straightness of strips. So these strips all vary in straightness. So there is some differences here. Let me just zoom out here so we can show you a little bit more. So what we have here is we have a straight edge, and we're just going to run this up against there. So I'm just going to hold it down at 44 inches and 1 inch. And you can see that this Chinese strip is relatively straight. It's almost perfect. I would say it's perfect. All right. So now we're going to take the Holiday Coral strip, hold that down at 1 inch, and again at 44 inches. And we can see that it's nearly perfect. We probably have a 1/16 of an inch difference here. And then next, we have this competitor strip, actually here. So I have to pull it in, and when I pull it in, you can see that it's actually rising up. It's got a kink in it. And if you just let it go and I just hold it without any effort to try to pull it closer, we end up in its natural form, when it's just laying flat. It has, over a 42-inch span, a half or a little bit more 5/8 inch gap. So this means that this strip, when it's extruded, is not tightly controlled through a dyeing system that causes it to straighten out. And so what happens is you get some waviness as the strip is produced during the extrusion process. This causes two problems. First of all, it means that the holes are not always centered in the strip. So as your tree is going up and down, you end up with not exactly straight lines. Now you can pull out some of this, but then you end up with this distortion like you see here, where you're trying to pull it out and it results in it curving. All right. Now let's get on to the absolute most important thing, the actual spacing. Now, Holiday Coral strip, because it's computer CNC punched, we can make anything. Well, I shouldn't say anything, but mostly everything. So we punch every hole individually. We do not use a rotary die. A rotary die requires a new die and punches for every single spacing. Well, clearly that's not really possible when you have dozens or hundreds of different possible spacings. So we chose to go with a different method of producing them. This is not only more accurate, but also allows unlimited numbers, well, technically, within our limits, 0.05 inch spacing. So that means that we can punch any size. We're not limited just to 1 inch, 3 inch, 2 inch, or whatever. You could do 2.15 inches or 3.55 inches. Why does that matter? If you want a tree that's exactly 15 feet tall and has 50 pixels, that's not possible today with regular strips and standardized 1 or 3 inch type spacings. You need something that's spaced perfectly for your particular tree. All right, now let's get on to something that's fairly important here. So if I can find my pen here. I'm going to put a key holder in here so that these are all the same length, and we're going to stretch them out against this, oops, get this here, against this ruler. Now, what we're going to see here, oops, let's see here, I'll just zoom in a little bit. And what we see here is, even when we pull out the slack, we end up with holes that don't line up. So, we should have all these holes perfectly aligned. Now, let's just look at each individual strip. So first, we're going to look at the U.S. produced product. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom out here. And we're going to set this over here at 1 inch, or 0 inches technically. And I'm going to just put that at the center line of this hole. I'm going to come over here, and we'll just all measure them at 36 inches right here. Actually, here, let's just do 30 inches since it's a little easy to get on the camera. So again, I've got it at 0 inches here, and this is a 2-inch spacing strip, and so it should align perfectly to every 2 inches. And here's 36 inches right here. And we can see that there is a almost ½ inch spacing difference between where this is vertical and where the hole's center line is. This is seriously bad. This means that any given strip may be longer or shorter than your intended length. Well, this would be fine maybe if you were doing one strip, but when you have a MegaTree made out of many strips, you want them to all be absolutely horizontally the same. This means that over 100 pixels, a 0.02 inch spacing, which is this manufacturer's standard accuracy, hole to hole, is 2 inches, 0.02 over 100 pixels. So you could have a 2-inch spacing one way or the other, shorter 2 inches, over 2 inches, just from the variability that occurs in the spacing on this product. So that's a serious, serious issue. Now, let's compare this to the Chinese strip. And so again, we're going to line this up. This is 1-inch strip, but still should always align here. So we're going to go here, 0. We go here to 34. Here we go. And you can see that it's actually quite close. That's a little hard to see here. Let's see if we can zoom in there. All right. So let's get that lined up here. And 34 inches. So it's just right at the edge. So it's about 0.2 inches or so spacing differences here. So not really bad, but definitely not perfect. All right, here's some Holiday Coral Extreme Strip. We're going to line this up here. Here, come down here. Oops. Let's get that center line. Here we go. And you can see 34 inches right. Oops, I'm sorry here. 34 inches right. Oops, moving it there. 34 inches right on the money. And again, this is a byproduct of the fact that our product is CNC produced. And so it's extremely accurate as opposed to a rotary punch. So these are the differences between strips available in the market today. Take all these issues into consideration, along with the fact that with Holiday Core Extreme Strip, you can get any spacing. It's clearly better individual spacing, so you get more accuracy. You also have a flatter material, better looking, and with all that individual spacing and by the foot sale, you can get just what you need. So you don't need to buy 1,000 feet if you just need 600. So Holiday Core Extreme Strip is superior in almost every possible way to these products.